Hello and welcome back. The SHSU MBA Student Association is excited to present Part 3 of the Spring 2021 MBASA Virtual Book Club. My name is Jonathan Kinsey and I'm the president of the MBASA. Today we'll be discussing Braving Trust, the third section of Brene Brown's New York Times bestseller, Dare to Lead. But before we dive in, if you're not already following us, be sure to subscribe, find us on Instagram, join our GroupMe, and ring that bell for more content. The MBASA, a student association, is all about building networks and building careers. So let's get connected. More details are in the description below. For those listening in that may not be as familiar with the book, let's recap a few things. Dr. Brene Brown has researched and authored several books surrounding courage, vulnerability, shame, and empathy. Dare to Lead organizes this research into 4 sections that aim to help cultivate readers into braver, more daring leaders. Today's discussion is focused on the third section, Braving Trust. Today, I've got with me a good colleague of mine, Clayton Cottle, and we're here to discuss that third section. So, Clayton, what would you say trust looks like?
Ooh, trust looks like friends. I guess I'm more a trust as feel.
So what then? Yeah, I would say okay. So I mean, I would agree. I think when I think of trust, I think of like I don't know. I guess maybe it's my like kind of like movement background or whatever. But immediately like I have like these flashes of like people's like arm, like you're reaching out and you're like grabbing someone's arm, like if they're like leaning off the edge of the cliff or something like that. Like there's this like physical aspect of it, which is I don't know why that's in my mind, but that kind of sticks out to me too. Or like like fall. This, yeah, like a trust fall, or like even like I don't know, so maybe like something more like troops, military, like brothers in arms type. I don't know. I don't know why, but I do. I feel like there's a lot of trust visually there for me.
Yeah, as you say it, it definitely like conjures up those feelings for me. Like I was trying to visualize as you were saying, that those are really strong images depicting trust. I feel like I also see like mothers for some reason, like the nurturing aspect of just this innate trust you have as a child that you'll be cared for. I guess that's where that thought's rooted.
No, absolutely. I definitely agree with that. I think this kind of I don't know. It's like scenes out of like I don't know. I just have very I guess a vivid like image, way of visualizing things cinematically. I just see like I don't know, like it's like I don't know, maybe scenes from like the Tree of Life or something, where it's like a mother and children like running in slow motion, and there's this kind of like I don't know communal aspect of what that is. So like if that's what that is, what would you say it doesn't look like? What are like I guess the antithesis of trust?
I like for some reason I think with your design background you can come up with like you can really relate these. I immediately visualize a feeling.
Okay, well then what's the feeling?
A frown. For some reason that's like what came to my mind. I was like, I don't think that's
well, then maybe the look like aspect of that question is not a great way to do that. So
it definitely challenges me to be creative in my thinking. What's the antithesis look like to you?
Well, I think I don't know, maybe like isolation.
Oh.
Or like being alone. And maybe those are the latent aftermath of that. Like it's like you've like broken a trust, and so like the trust, either you're the one breaking the trust. I guess this is all from the perspective of someone that has done the action of breaking trust, or is not being trusted. How about that? But I guess if I were coming from the other side of that, like I guess you could be maybe alone, but like angry or like upset. Maybe those are emotional aspects of that. If you want to go more in the emotional range for that, I don't know. Maybe that could look like I don't know why I just got this mental image of like sitting on like a bus station stop bench, like
slouched over,
yeah,
down on your luck. That's
that's
kind of where the frown image was coming too. It's like hunched over posture, alone, kind of, you're saying a dark feel to the image.
very heavy, for sure.
What the other image that popped up was in my mind is, what are they called? Haunted houses. So that's something I don't trust. That's obviously, that's down in the brain somewhere.
Yeah, I definitely am not a fan of like the jump scare stuff. Like no, I don't. That definitely evokes like a hard distrust for me, for sure, for
But
sure.
just walking into it.
Yeah, yeah, for real. Oh my gosh. I mean, but isn't that how that always is though? Like, like the moment like some trust is defined, it's like in this like, I don't know, like instance in a way. But we can get into more about that later on. So I guess the reason why I'm asking that is like in the book, like in this particular part of it, Brene does talk about that, and she, is specifically kind of going, okay. She asked a similar question. She's like, okay, well, what does it look like? What is it? How is it? Like, how can we define what it is that composes this idea of trust? And so she uses this acronym called BRAVING, and this thing called the BRAVING inventory. So that's like boundaries, reliability, accountability, vault, integrity, non-judgment, and generosity. And so like those things are, I guess, all behaviors for her that I guess surround trust and then either add to it or take away from it, depending on how the behavior is kind of exhibited. So I think, I don't know, it was a really interesting kind of framework for me to kind of take it in this way. I really appreciated kind of the way that she, I guess, came about that with her research. And so, I mean, because it definitely got me thinking. But I guess, I don't know, Clayton, what do you think that, just kind of going and reading about that and kind of thinking about it from a perspective of behaviors and, things that you may do, what do you think that's kind of like really defines trust for you? Or does it address trust in a way? You're muted.
Let's say, to be entirely honest, I did not get to that part, but I'm actually like really intrigued to hear more about it if you don't mind.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so like, yeah, let's talk about it. So, specifically, like what she was talking about was this idea of in boundaries. You're like, okay, you need to respect my boundaries, or like when you're not clear about basically you need to be clear about things, like like what is okay and what is not okay, and you need to be willing to say no, or in reliability you do what you'll say you'll do, and like at work, and that means staying away, I guess, aware of like what you're good at, and what you aren't good at. So
Right.
you don't like overpromise, and underdeliver on things. The she When she's talking about accountability, she's talking about, I guess, like owning up to your mistakes, apologizing, and trying to find a way forward. And then I guess the one that, because a lot of these are like really obvious, like, or they could be very obvious. But the vault one I was like, what is that? What do you mean? And so she actually starts off, whenever she's talking about it in the book, she's talking about this idea of, it's almost like keeping secrets. It's a vault. It's a safe. I don't know why she chose that particular. Maybe she did. Maybe she said why she chose it first, but I thought it was interesting that she chose that one to go through first inside of discussing it. But she talked about it as a way of like, you're not supposed to share information or experiences that aren't yours to share, and knowing and letting like other people can be confident that those things are kept, right. They're not shared with. So in that kind of goes like, and so one of the things that she talked about, which was interesting to me, was that a lot of these behaviors are interconnected. And I think that was something that's interesting too, but we can come back to that as well if you'd like to in a minute. I just wanted to make a note about it because that's how she kind of talked about it. But I mean, like a vault specifically to boundaries, right? So like, like if you're clearly defining what's okay to share and what's not okay to share, things like that, are kind of defining trust. But then also she had integrity as one of them. So like, standing up for things in the moment when it needs to be said, or when, no one else will say it, being courageous instead of comfortable. And then non-judgment. So like you can just say what you need. You can like go out there, and like, hey, like I'm working on this right now. Like I know, like, or whatever, like just asking for what you need without necessarily coming in and saying you should know you're not doing that or whatever. Like there's this judging attitude about it. And how you, I guess, talking about how you feel as well, like, without necessarily jumping to judging other people for how they feel. And then the last one was the generosity. And so this is kind of her, she talked about this in other parts of the book too, but like assuming the positive, right? So extending the most gracious interpretation possible to the intentions, words, and actions of others. So that's kind of like, I'll throw it up here one more time so you can see it. Boundaries, reliability, accountability, vault, integrity, non-judgment, generosity.
Reliability, vault, and integrity all seem very similar.
Yeah.
When
you say similar, how are you seeing them as similar? I give me a second to think about that while you answer.
I guess similar in the fact that you can't have one without the other.
Yeah. Well,
like integrity
I think that's
and reliability to me. I guess
I wonder if that similarity is like the connective tissue that literally is the backbone and definition of trust.
It could be.
And maybe that's what she's getting at too, is like, like just like you're talking about, like, well, you can't have one without the other. Like these seem like they're the same word, and that sameness is like literally trust. I don't know. Like
I do appreciate the inclusion of generosity.
Yeah, me too.
That was a nice spin on some of the others. Kind of, you would already liken to trust.
Yeah.
Generosity that's a nice touch to be added.
Absolutely. Yeah. Cause I think that's, I don't know, at some point, like, I don't know, you want people to I don't know if you're, and I hate that because it's like, it's hard to not use the word trust and talk about trust, right? It's like trying to not use the word in the definition. But it's like when you want to go and talk to people, you kind of, I don't know, like when I want to have that vulnerable moment, right? That vulnerability with somebody. I guess I would love for them to come at me with let me, a positive stance, right?
Right.
I think that, without that generosity aspect, then I feel like you kind of lose that maybe, or you could, maybe not, but you could. So that's kind of nice that definitely. I agree.
And I think too, it's, just looking back at my own experiences, when I experience someone who's generous, or I am generous, I feel like trust is either being earned or has already been established. Although I wish I was more generous all the time, right? When it does happen, I feel like it's with someone I trust or someone that trusts me.
Yeah. Huh. Yeah, no, that's one of those weird like catch-22 things you're talking about, like where it's like, well, if it's not here, then, which one of these behaviors sticks out to you the most? I mean, we've talked about a couple little ones of them, but like, which one I guess is
vault for sure.
Why,
I just, it's not something I had thought about in relation yet. And it's
yeah,
definitely something that's just critical. It's like
yeah,
that can opening the vault could like rip the rug out from something.
yeah, yeah.
As you were explaining it, I was like, whoa, yeah.
Well, and I think the thing that was like, somewhat unexpected for me too, because I think that one stuck out to me a little bit when I first was hearing it as well, was she specifically goes into like, she's like, okay, well, it's what everyone thinks it is, right? It's like not sharing secrets. It's not these things, like but like, she's like, that's true. But like, what about the moments when like you go into like somewhere else and you like, even if it's not about the stuff that is like not okay to share, right?
Mm-hmm.
You still share about other things. So like if you're going in somewhere and you're saying, hey, like, you come in and you're just like spill the tea on like some other stuff, and it's like, like does that like break down uh things for other people's perspective of you, I guess, if that makes sense, right? So it's not about this. It's like, sure, there's like this integrity aspect of the vault where like you're like, okay, cool, I know I can't share these things, so I'm not going to, right? And
Right.
then but I'm gonna share everything else that I know I can with you, right? And so like you
Yeah.
come in and then that person goes, well, while you didn't break my trust in sharing the definite things that were no subjects, you kind of make me want to not trust you because you share everything else.
I
And
like,
I thought
as
that was
you're saying
very,
that, I totally relate that we've all encountered people who and they say things to you and you're like, oh, I appreciate the tea, right? Like, yeah, like,
yeah,
oh, you always like tea.
yeah,
um
tea's great.
but then you get to thinking, you're like, wait, something's not right about that. It's
Yeah,
it's like that felt as if there was an agenda, or as if anything I say is at risk.
yeah, yeah,
But
yeah.
that's
No, it
a
definitely, I feel like it's a
uh,
trigger for sure.
I
Like,
was gonna say, I feel like that is a cancer of workplaces.
ooh,
um and like different
well,
workplaces I've been through, when you start to see culture go south, even if it's just a
mhm,
little pocket of people, um it's often from that vault, I guess, where there's just this tea being spilled everywhere,
yeah,
and it becomes like a rumor mill almost.
yeah. No, and I think that I don't know, like, and the way she describes it is that it creates a short circuit, or like a quick connection. Like, so like, it's like it's like a little, like, I guess it's cathartic in the moment, but it's like way damaging later, right?
Yeah, I mean, I'm
And
guilty of
that's,
it too.
yeah, no, I same. So,
Right. I,
yeah, you know what I
I
mean. I think a lot of folks are, but I mean, like, it's, uh, I don't know. It's really, I guess that's where that integrity aspect of it does too, is where it's like, okay, cool. So like you actually have to actively fight it, right? It's like, okay,
yeah,
I'm not going to say these things. I'm not going to do this. And there's probably better things you could talk about with someone, most likely as well.
it's
You know,
it's something like, for me, that is very difficult, because I mean, me, I'm very transparent. Like, I think that everybody should just know everything, and then we could all make a decision together. But I
yeah,
realize that's not always right, and so as I'm growing as a professional, I like you're saying, I notice that I'm putting in extra energy to keep myself from being just completely transparent person, because I'm realizing that
yeah,
boundaries, right? Like,
yeah.
there's a time and place, and the implications. It's something that takes a lot of energy.
Well, and I think for me, like, I'm realizing as well, like, so like this idea of like building, like, I don't know, building a relationship with somebody professionally or personally or whatever, like, um, kind of that going back to that idea of like, like, okay, cool. Like if you're trying to seek like community and connection and some of those things, like if you go in and you're like, oh, I'm going to spill the tea that way, like, well, we can have a conversation, or we can have like water cooler talk, or we can have whatever, like there's probably a way better way to do that. And what I mean by that is like, focusing the conversation on things that are like a much deeper connection, right? And sometimes those I think are harder conversations to have because I guess maybe sometimes they're more personal. I guess to a way, like to an extent, right? It's like, I mean, like this kind of idea of like, I know like going through some of the classes that we've had to go through, and I think you may have finished one that it's going to be similar to what I'm talking about, is this idea of like, instead of going into a coworker's office and whatever, like, like what if I engage them on my faults? What if I engage them on, my self-awareness and where I'm at and like whatever, and I'm struggling in these moments right here, and like what if I go and ask their advice instead of about this idea of broad strokes, not details, right? No, we're not talking about details. We're not talking about spilling details from the vault. We're talking about I'm struggling with this character issue of myself, right? So like approaching this much deeper personal connection, I think it's a lot harder. And it may not, I don't know, but I think that may be a little bit more productive and more meaningful long run, as a way to combat that itch to get that person, that quick connection, that quick thing. But
no, I agree, and that's a good point. It makes me think of like if you can get to that point. So like how I view this, and it's probably somewhat judgmental, but it's the talking about people to other people is really easy. It's like the go-to thing, and why you turn on TV and it's these talk shows and they're just talking about people. And so I think that it's like almost a surface level thing, like you're saying, like on a personal level, people are scared to go beyond that because it does, like as she was saying earlier, you have to take off armor to get beyond talking about people, because talking about people is easy. You just deflect everything about yourself. You never have to talk about yourself. But if you can get to these talking about deeper topics, when I think about it from a business perspective, is that you're able to get into deeper conversations about ideas and learn your weaknesses and your strengths professionally and as a person, and you can start to learn your lane on a team. You make great points about that.
Well, and it opens it up for discussion, right? And so there's like this idea of inclusion. I think that's a huge thing, right? So like, especially now, like I think trying to lean into that behavior really allows for other people to give input about your perspective, right? I think that's a big part of it. I think that kind of, I don't know, leads into the next aspect of what one of the things that she talked a lot about was this metaphor that she used. She was talking about she learned this metaphor from, I guess, something that Melinda Gates had said about, you know, uh, a marble jar, right? And so, like, each guess marbles are like instances of trust or like trust building units, maybe. And they can, with every single interaction that you have, like in this way, you're either adding marbles to the jar, or you're taking like sometimes handfuls out, right? And so, like, I think, that particular thing of like, opening yourself up, being vulnerable to a much deeper discussion around the water cooler, or a much, deeper discussion running into your coworker's office or into the other room or whatever. I think you're really opening yourself up to including other people into your own like development, but also you're adding marbles to yourself, but also to their jar, like within that interaction, I think. So I don't know. Yes, you have a thought.
It's going to take it somewhat off topic.
Go for it.
So I was going to say, which is just par for the course, right? But when I was viewing them, like I've heard of the marble jar thing before I read the book, actually, and didn't even realize it was from Brene. I was thinking about, so the marble jar as like an individual, right? Like you are the marble jar essentially. And so you take marbles out and they're out. but where do the marbles go? And I was thinking, like, as a team, if everybody has their own jar, that's them. When they take it out, it's marbles on the ground, which I don't, in my mind, I view the more marbles out of the jar, it's waves. So it's harder for everybody to stay stable. But the more marbles in the jar, you have a flat surface. And that's like a team of all trust. And I was just thinking about it from that perspective rather than just a single jar, and how much easier it is to trust when everybody else has already established trust. Like, to get into a team where there's trust, or a group of people, you immediately get in, and you know that there's boundaries, there's rules, and you're like, yeah, I like this.
Yeah. No, for sure. Because I don't know, I feel like it's healthy, right? And so, I mean, just like listening, I don't know, it's different people talk about it, like, just the idea of discussion and discourse and disagreement and, different things that I think people would stray away from, but like embracing those things and, using those as tools to really add, like, or pick up marbles off the floor, look at them, talk about them, hello, hi, and then we can, take yours, and I'll take mine, and we can put it back in our jar,
Right.
and create that foundation, I think,
I definitely know I need to work on when removing marbles. Right now, I'm like using like an excavator or whatever. It's like ripping out as many as possible, right? And I need to use like one of those joystick cranes when you like try to grab the little stuffed animal game.
Yeah,
I need to use something more like that, because as I was reading it, I'm like, yeah, that's a bit of an overreaction sometimes, where you just immediately, it's just cutting it off.
Yeah.
And I really appreciated that. But I tied it back to, so one of the lines I have underlined here is, we have to teach people how to land before they jump. And so she's talking about, when you go skydiving, you have to learn how to fall before you go up. And I was like, yeah, that helped me put into perspective the marble analogy. So I need to realize that people, you can lose trust sometimes, and just a little bit, not all of it.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's like one of the things that kind of like also transitions into this next little part that I think for me personally, I was like, whoa. There was, this aspect of talking about vaults, or, integrity, and some of these other trust, like, foundational concepts, and the marble jar was cool. But then I was like, when she was like, but do you trust yourself? And I'm like, oh my God. Wow, this is so difficult. It's like, I don't know. It was so
Why
hard.
did it make you feel that way?
I think just the way, sometimes my, inner dialogues is a maze sometimes. And I think that, I know I'm a very critical person of myself, and I guess I've gone through many experiences in life to become less critical of others, right? And so, rough times of learning hard lessons and taking too many marbles out of the jar and different, so like I've learned a lot how to uh, deal better with others in most cases. Still learning on that. I'm not going to say that I'm great at it, but I think that I definitely equally, or if not more so, or I have not like focused on the self-criticism, right? And so, which is definitely like one of those crippling things for people that are like in the creative fields and kind of some of my background. And so it's like, how do you create without being overly critical? And I know that's definitely something that I've struggled. So, like, I know, like, even recently, like in the pandemic, like, it's been hard to like not let my inner dialogue take me down a path, you know what I mean? And so it's like, and as you do that, it's the same kinds of behaviors that you're telling yourself that's also taking your own marbles out and like spilling it all over the floor, right? So that's an interesting thing to have to, especially with like a team dynamic too. Like, how would you, it's like, to think about, like, there's someone just over, like, there's other people like digging out of other people's jars, and then there's people that are just like throwing stuff out of their own jars. Like, it's like, how, like, what? I don't know. I'm just having this crazy wild visual right now in my head about marble jars
and in one mega jar, hoovering all of them up.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. Oh my gosh. So yeah, I don't know. Have you had much experience with kind of that as well, or is that not something that's
The trust, excuse me, the trust of oneself.
yeah.
Uh, so I'd be lying if I said no, but I'm also blindly confident, and trust myself. Yeah, but that has like the bad effects on that end as well, right?
Yeah.
But there are some times where I don't trust myself as much, but I always go
Yeah.
back to like my something I live by, and it's that doubt cannot coexist with belief.
Yeah.
And so, and whenever I feel like, man, what am I doing, or why did I say that, or something like that, I'm like, just know, stick to the plan, just believe in yourself. And it
Yeah.
may just be some confirmation bias that I'm feeding myself over and over, and I should be more analytical and critical, but I can't say for certain that I feel that regularly.
Yeah. Well, and I guess like that's kind of, I don't know. So like you've set up those kind of, I think you'd say like those are like certain boundaries that you set up. You start down there and you're like, oh, I hit the boundary. Okay, here we go. We're not doing that. We're not doing this. Like you tell your things about like, yeah, you know what? Like I am consistent about this, right? I am reliable. I am, you know, I do, apologize when I make, I do try to do these things. I do try to, um, think about the positive things. And, so I think those are the things, at least for me, like I find definitely help counteract that. But like, I think you're right in that way. But I mean, I wouldn't necessarily, I don't know, maybe I'm making a bigger deal than I need to about it. But like,
No,
even
but
in myself, but I think it's a real thing that people do face. I think that isn't maybe as talked much about that, I don't know. But I think her
so
framework does apply.
to trusting oneself,
Yeah.
that's
And kind of the dialogue that you tell yourself, and the examples that you bring up about your own behavior, right? And how you add that back into your own self dialogue.
I
The
wonder how
highlight reel of trust.
put that on the top 10.
There you go.
I'm just thinking of the visual, trying to get a visual of like the self trust and what that would look like. And
Oh,
again, my non-visual
I
mind.
just, well, no, I mean, and I think you painted that well. Like, I mean, just like this confidence, right? And so it's like, I think that that's, um, or like, maybe this is literally a trust thing, but like, for me, like I have people, right? I have certain people that I go to and that I do talk about things with. So like, it's like, okay, cool. So I mean, I guess maybe that's the literal definition of trust. But like, it's the similar things which I remember back in the beginning of the book, she talked about this idea of like calling things out, right? So it's like,
Mhm.
I am thinking this, tell me I'm wrong, right? It's like, I'm thinking this, tell me I'm wrong. I've caught myself doing that quite a bit, as a lesson learned from her book. Where I open up the dialogue and
Outwardly or inwardly?
outwardly with
Okay.
people like, hey, I'm thinking this. Am I like crazy? Am I like perceiving the wrong thing? And so like by having that discussion, it does kind of thwart a lot of those internal dialogues, I think.
Oh, that's great. So you found like a tool, you pulled a tool out that helps with some of
With
the,
that, yeah,
yeah.
and I think that a lot of that, and I think that's kind of it though. Is in some cases that's for me that's like accountability. I know that maybe it's not the way that she describes it, but like accountability and non-judgment, that I rely on, a select few other people in certain moments to, go to them and say, hey, like you watched this happen, like you were there, like am I crazy for
Right.
thinking this? Like so I think that that's kind of I don't know, a big part for me in that, in terms of a practical adding of the marbles back into your own self jar.
That's
Um,
that is a great tool. And like to liken it back to the analogy of the jar, like to get them back in. That's one of the gatekeepers for you.
Yeah, no, I think so, at least for me. But, I think that, I don't know. I don't know. What do you think other people may do in that case?
To try to get
or is there,
marbles back in the jar?
Yeah, for themselves. What do you think other people might do? I don't know if I have. I would have to think about that for a second.
Other people like me would have the problem where I'd let all the marbles in, and sometimes I get burned.
Yeah,
I tend to be just overly trusting and just always assume people have pure hearts.
Yeah.
So I guess I should probably build in measures like you to where marbles are slowly loaded in and slowly loaded out.
I don't know if I don't know
like
if I have that.
a cup.
Yeah, I don't know if I have a great balance. And I wouldn't say necessarily that it's a I wouldn't necessarily say that my self-doubt or my self-criticism is a form of distrust. Because it sounded like the way that you described that just then sounded like it was slightly like I distrust people, and I actually feel the opposite. Is I feel like I overly trust people sometimes.
Okay.
Yeah. So and I think maybe that describes the burn feeling a little bit, or at least I have in the past. Not that I've like lost my faith in humanity or have gone off the deep end on anything, but I do feel. I don't know.
When you say it like that, then I do feel I distrust myself sometimes when I too quickly empty my marbles, right? And then I'm like, what am I doing? And why am I doing that? Is that even right? Like, do I even know what I'm doing anymore?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I do experience it then for sure.
Well, and I recently learned about this other thing. So like, I was hanging out with some family, and they shared with me this New York Times article. It was written by Adam Grant, actually. So you're probably familiar with him. But he specifically was talking, it was like a real recent, I think it was like last week or something like that it just came out. But they were talking about this idea of languishing. He was describing that languishing is like a sense of stagnation and emptiness. So like, is that what you feel as the marbles start going out? Is that like, I don't know, like, you're muddling through your days, you're looking through life like it's a foggy windshield type situation? Are those kind of the aftermath, maybe emotionally, of losing trust in yourself?
100%. That
I don't know.
I feel like that's the feeling, and as I found the first distrust, they're just all flowing in now. So again, me, and like I have these crazy ideas all the time, like, oh, let's do this, and then I'll just jump into it. I'll try to do it, but when they don't work out, I am languishing. Because I get all muddy and foggy. I'm like, what am I doing? Like, this isn't who I can be. It's who I want to be, but I can't be this. And I'm just like mopey. Is that languishing?
I think so. Because I mean, like he was talking about it as though like, he's saying in psychology, I guess there's like a sliding scale between like depression and like flourishing. And so like languishing is like in the middle. It's like this weird thing that no one talks about. It's just like, well, today's been another day of like, I think that, I mean, the reason why he was writing about it was because he was saying that maybe this would be the dominant emotion of 2021, because I think a lot of people are, no, for real. Like we're coming out of this, pandemic situation,
right.
Things are starting to open up, things are starting to get a little, whatever. And like, you have energy, Like, you're like, yeah, I've got energy. But like, I think a lot of people are like, in this place of like, well, like, I've tried, I've been trying things to like keep myself busy for such a long time. Like now I'm just like,
I picture isolation, like you said earlier, then.
yeah.
Languishing, to how you described it makes me think back to isolation.
Yeah.
Right. Man.
And like the way he described it too was like, it's similar in just kind of a different way in terms of practical things. But like he was saying, I think in general, I mean, this is probably a little bit more general, but like putting a name to things, like, more people wanting to put a name to things and finding it and be like, oh, it's this. Right. And then they're like, yes, I feel great.
Yeah.
And it's like, identify the problem. Here we go. Great.
Shout out WebMD.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. But then like, after that, like, it's like, okay, well, how do you, I think in this kind of goes back to, if we want to tie this back into the trust thing, right? And so like, if you found yourself in a place of like, I've either broken trust or like trust is like whatever. I mean, you could be as a result in a languishing type state, right? And I think this, small goals and interactions that you're having with yourself in those kinds of times, I think are really key, right? So like, we're talking about, I mean, even if you're, sitting there going, well, how do I rebuild a relationship I just broke with somebody? Is it the small steps of, asking them about specific things, little things, is it, just like you with yourself, like, is it you doing like a Sudoku puzzle in the morning before you start your day, or are you going enjoying this particular, like, going outside and, drinking a cup of coffee, and then, or getting excited about, like, what, I can make a list of things to do and I can do them today. And like, I will then feel accomplished and thus feel like I'm getting things done. And maybe at the end of that, I'll also be able to reflect upon other positive things that maybe my own reliability on myself, my own, like how I've worked through things before, or how, uh, I don't know, it just a way to shift perspectives, maybe, if that makes sense. But I think those were things that he was talking about in this article that kind of stuck to me, and then maybe are tying here in this discussion. I don't know.
First off,
your question,
tying it to the feeling of the pandemic, great. That's brilliant. I mean, I feel like that's what everybody felt like. I'm living this year of my life in between these walls. It's like I have all this energy. Yeah. I want to do all these things, and nope. I feel like that is a great and not like definition. I mean, just one that everybody can relate to. I was trying to like think about it in my own experiences, and I feel like if setting long-term goals helps get beyond that feeling, because then if you are feeling down throughout the day, you can position your mind to, oh, well, my long-term goal is this, but maybe that just means that you have 364 days of languishing, then the 365th day you're like, I've done it. And then it goes back.
Yeah. I don't know.
So what tools get you out of that?
Well, I think like he specifically was talking about, like, like putting a name to it, like getting, these small goals, like figuring out how to set those goals, and doing little things to, I think, rebuild that trust in yourself. Right.
Right.
Or, building trust in other people again, or, whatever it, is a weird, I guess, I don't know. When I say building trust in other people again, I mean, I guess at some point, a pandemic has caused us to not trust other people, right? On some level,
right?
Like, I think, even as those interactions, and like, how do I be a human, and how do I interact with people not on a computer anymore, or how do I, do that? But I think it's that same jar idea, whether that's with the trust or with something else. I think it's a very similar. All these small interactions add up over time. I think so. That's to me But I think that's a positive thing to think about. I think that's something to reflect on. It's something to keep safe in your own, I guess, vault. Is like, you know what? At the end of the day, I can look back and say this, and this, and I know that. So for like within the self idea, I think that that's a big part of it, to move past and move through and get breakthroughs, right? You know, it's like, oh, great. I had a really productive today. Like, you know, I got a bunch of stuff done. And I feel really great about that. And even though it may not have been the best organized or the whatever, you know, I think that still leads to getting back in a groove. That's what it was, getting back in a groove, right? A rhythm, a flow was, I think, the word that he used, right? So working to get back towards the flow of, you know, having those interactions, of doing different things to rebuild up those confidences in yourself and other people.
Yeah, that all makes great sense. It's just a slow, earned process, but rewarding.
Yes, the long run.
Right.
Absolutely. Well, we've been chatting for about 45 minutes, so I feel like we've had some really great discussions, and
yeah.
I think as our discussions come to a close, I'd like to thank you for joining me today, as we've been braving trust together. And I'd also like those that tuned in to join us in reading together to thank you as well. And if you haven't had a chance to pick up the book, I would highly recommend it. I'd also recommend that Adam Grant New York Times article on Languishing. It's a great one. So go look up Adam Grant Languishing on New York Times. It's great. And we would also like to encourage you to tune back in tomorrow for our next virtual panel discussion on small business development. It's a really good one. Tune in to gain insight on resources that are available to help you get started with small business. Rhonda Ellisor from the Sam Houston State University Small Business Development Center will be joining us. The SBDC is truly a fantastic source, so you want to make sure that you don't miss out. To all of the College of Business students, I strongly encourage you to subscribe to the YouTube channel so that you can stay up to date on what we're releasing. Join the MBA Student Association and push yourself to engage with others. We've got information about how to get involved down below. So, with all of that, stay courageous and be brave, everyone. Thank you.